All right, picture this for a second. You are in a loud, chaotic punk band touring the outer edges of a galaxy that's ruled by a massive, totalizing bureaucracy. Your music, it's pure, unfiltered noise. It's literally a defiant scream against a system that wants to absorb absolutely everything into a neat, categorized database. But pretty quickly, you realize that just screaming your lungs out isn't going to cut it. You need structure. You need a system. So what's the game plan? Well, our protagonists, a band called the Bastard Frequencies, pull off something completely wild. They use 13th century medieval scholastic philosophy to fight a sci-fi galactic empire, because honestly, what says punk rock more than Thomas Aquinas, right? Let's dive into this explainer.
To really wrap our heads around this incredible story, we are going to navigate through 5 structured sections today. 1. The imperial synthesis. 2. The concept of hackasiety. 3. The scholastic method. 4. The collaborative summa. And 5. The final disputation.
Kicking things off with Section 1, the imperial synthesis. Let's see exactly what our band is up against.
So, the Pax Omniversal Empire controls a staggering 17,000 inhabited systems, and they've actually maintained peace for 300 years. But here's the catch. They don't just enforce this peace with fleets of starships. They use bureaucracy. They genuinely believe that all conflict comes from differences. So their grand solution is to just absorb every single descending culture, every unique practice, and every individual into a vast categorized database known as the synthesis. Basically, they're claiming that true peace requires wiping out individuality altogether. If you don't neatly fit into their universal synthesis, well, you're deemed illegal.
And this brings us right to the core ideological clash of the whole story. It's essentially 2 very different versions of harmony. On one side, you've got the Empire's harmony, where they believe unity means erasing boundaries and dissolving people into this homogeneous universal pattern. But on the flip side, we have the band's harmony. They believe true peace, and honestly, true music, is built on distinct, irreducible voices. The band plays raw music that absolutely refuses to be categorized. They are literally the sound of people who just will not be ground down into a gray paste.
Moving on to Section 2, the concept of hackasiety. This is where the band discovers the vocabulary they need.
So the band finds their way to this monastery space station, right? And there they meet an ancient philosopher monk named Brother Anselm. He introduces them to this wild concept coined by the 13th century thinker Duns Scotus. It's called hackasiety, which translates literally to thisness. Basically, hackasiety is the irreducible formal principle of particularity. It is the absolute, unrepeatable uniqueness of a specific thing. It's not just about what broad category something belongs to, but the raw fact that it is this specific thing and not that one. And guess what? Hackasiety is the exact quality the Empire's categorical machine just cannot absorb.
The crucial takeaway here is this idea. To be a particular thing is not to be isolated from all other things, but to be this and not that. Think about that for a second. Maintaining your specific identity isn't about cutting yourself off from the rest of the universe. It's simply about refusing to be flattened out into some generic category. The Empire wants everyone to think particularity is just an illusion, that deep down we're all just universal patterns. But hackasiety says no. It argues that your thisness is real, it's profound, and it is absolutely worth protecting. Now, to make this highly abstract concept a bit more tangible, let's look at what the band calls the phenomenological proof. They bring up an audio recording of a group called the Canticle Collective. It's a 40-voice choir singing a single, sustained drone note. Now, at first listen, it just sounds like perfect, homogeneous unity. But if you really pay attention, you can hear 40 completely distinct voices. Every single singer is bringing their own unique timbre, their own unique breath. If you were to silence just one singer, sure, the note is still a drone, but a very specific color drops out of it. The sound is demonstrably impoverished. It proves that a true whole doesn't just erase its parts. It actually needs their particular thisness to be rich and full.
Which brings us to Section 3, the scholastic method. Let's see how they use this as a weapon.
Right around now, the band has this massive light bulb moment. Screaming negates, but resistance needs a grammar. You see, a punk scream is super powerful because it loudly declares what it's against. It outright refuses the Empire's categories. But if literally all you do is negate, the Empire is just going to categorize you as a negation and file you away in their system. Game over. To truly resist, the band realizes they need a rigorous, undeniable system. They need a formal grammar to engage with and dismantle the Empire's logic from the inside out.
And here is that grammar. It's the scholastic method, famously championed by Thomas Aquinas. The band actually adopts his exact 4-step structure.
Step 1. You state your opponent's strongest objections, fully and fairly. No straw man arguments here. You give their actual argument space to breathe. Step 2. You introduce a counterstatement, usually kicking off with, on the contrary. Step 3. You say, I answer that, and make very formal, precise distinctions to clarify the terms. And finally, Step 4. You systematically reply to those initial objections, one by one. By doing this, the band forces the empire into a space of genuine, structured argument, instead of just letting them use violent suppression.
Using this exact method, the band makes a really vital metaphysical distinction between two very different types of unity. The empire is all about univocal unity, right? That's where the collective whole is the top priority, and individuals are just derivative parts that are meant to be absorbed. But the band, they argue for analogical unity. This is the idea that the individual and the collective actually emerge together, co-constituting one another. Neither one gets swallowed up by the other. Instead, they exist in mutual harmony, exactly like those distinct voices in our choir example from earlier.
All right, let's jump to section 4, the collaborative summa. What starts out as a tiny philosophical exercise by the band rapidly scales up into a full-blown galactic movement. On day 1, they published their first article on Hex City on Hesychus Station. Fast forward to day 14, and their arguments are already so airtight and, frankly, so dangerous to the empire's doctrine that they get a formal warning from the Imperial Synthesis Office. By week 3, the whole project totally transforms into an open-source collaborative network. And finally, this massive, undeniable wave of intellectual resistance actually forces the empire's hand. They invite the band to a high-stakes public disputation on the capital world of Nova Roma on day 47.
Just to put that into perspective, by week 3, participation absolutely explodes. We're talking a staggering 1,847 contributors from 94 different star systems, all actively participating in this massive theological wiki. You've got quantum physicists, underground resistance cells, neo-Gregorian singers. They are all logging on to submit arguments, art, and phenomenological evidence. The band essentially builds a distributed intelligence network to write the ultimate defense of human particularity. It's just wild.
And that brings us to our final section, Section 5, the final disputation, the big showdown.
So the band, right alongside Brother Anselm, travels all the way to Nova Roma. They step into this massive grand hall in front of 10,000 people in the room, plus millions more watching on the live broadcast. The formal debate topic is literally the ultimate showdown of their foundational beliefs. The topic is whether the good of the individual can stand against the good of the whole. Naturally, the empire's finest scholars step up and argue that resisting integration just causes chaos, and that true goodness is only found when the individual is completely, 100% subsumed into the collective synthesis.
But our protagonists are ready. They fight back using that rigorous grammar they've completely mastered. Brother Anselm steps up and beautifully counters the empire's point. He argues that the individual is like a single voice in a song. If you silence that voice, you haven't purified the song at all. You've impoverished it. He demonstrates that true wholeness, whether it's a marriage or a massive chorus, preserves the many within the one. If the so-called good of the whole requires erasing all distinction, then it's not a whole at all. It's just a totalitarian fiction. You simply cannot achieve harmony by silencing the very voices that make up the song.
At this point, the empire demands cold empirical proof. They want to see that this hexicity, this unique individual essence, is actually real. And this is where the story reaches its absolute climax. Jax, the band's bassist, doesn't stand there and give them a math formula. Instead, she just picks up her instrument and plays a single, raw, unrepeatable note. It is the exact sound of these specific hands on these specific strings at this exact moment in time. Without saying a word, she proves to the entire galaxy that no perfect digital synthesizer could ever replace the lived, breathing hexicity of an authentic human performance.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want you to take a second and consider your own unrepeatable identity. You have a completely unique voice. Your thisness absolutely matters. But let's be real. The world is full of totalizing forces that want nothing more than to absorb you into the crowd. Your scream, your rebellion against that, that's a great start. But the real question is, do you have the grammar, the structure, and the logic to actually defend your individuality? Thanks so much for exploring the Summa against the stars with me today. Until next time, keep your voice distinct and definitely keep asking the hard questions.